Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation. I'm Phil Dark, your host. Back with me, after one episode without me, without him, I guess. It was with me. Paul Jobson, my co-host, my brother. Paul, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Phil. Missed you for sure, buddy. But we're
No, you
back. We're back
didn't.
at
No,
it.
you
I
didn't,
did.
Paul.
I
Let's
did.
be honest.
Okay. Okay. All right. I didn't think about you at all, Phil. It was a great break. No, I'm just kidding.
That's good. That's good.
No, just back at it, man. Like it's good. We're in November, so that means we're all ramping up for end of the year fundraising, end of the year school stuff, trips, soccer's wrapping up, like everything's kind of winding down a little bit, which means activity is ramping up, right? Which is crazy. You got to ramp up to wind down, I guess. But things are good here, man. I hope the same for you and your family and all that's going on in what sounds like rainy California today. That's just unusual.
It is. It is. It's rainy. It's gloomy. It's actually welcome rain. It's been really dry, and so I'm glad. But yeah, it's a cold, rainy day, which it's November, so it kind of feels like it should be. It's like been amazing, 70, incredible fall. But yeah, it's as you said, we're getting ready. It's actually the winter soccer season here is starting up, so I'm getting ready to. We actually have tryouts today for our high school. I'm getting excited for that, even though we have the bummer of my daughter Kirsten having a little ACL tear, so that's a huge bummer. She has
Bummer.
to
Yeah,
miss her senior season. But she's going to be a coach with us, be part of the leadership team, and finish
that's
strong in that
awesome.
way. And so really excited for her to learn that side of it. And just really what we talk about on the show, right? The resilience, the adversity, and how you handle it,
Mhm.
and how she can be a leader from the bench, and all these things that do we really believe it, or is it just words that we talk
Mhm.
about? And so I'm excited to see how she's been handling it, and will continue to see that her identity's not wrapped up in the sport, and again, all the stuff we talk about, and you hope your kids will
Yeah.
respond this way. um and she has definitely been very proud in how she's handled it. I know it's a bummer, and inside I know she's bummed, um but she's really making the most of it. A lot of kids will be like, I'm out, but she's like, all
Yeah.
right, leadership team, let's go. She's leading it as the senior, and I love it. A lot of those girls look up to her, so for them to be able to see how she's handling it, it's really cool.
That's
So
awesome. Awesome.
um but today we have a guest that I'm really excited to talk with. Warren Maynard, good friend, Matt Bernard. Matt, you're out there. Hopefully you listen to this since you sent him my way. But sent Warren our way, and we get to have a conversation with a guy who isn't necessarily a big time soccer player. I mean, he played as a kid, Pee Wee leagues, whatever we call it, ASO probably back in the day, and but was tennis, big time tennis player. So we've had a couple tennis players on the show, Paul.
Mm. Yeah.
But here we go, Warren. How you doing, man?
Oh, so good to be with you guys. I'm doing great. Excited about this. I don't get to talk about sports and leadership nearly enough. So as soon as Matt introduced the idea and connected me to you guys, I've been stoked to get into it and really excited to explore that intersection of leadership and sports and my experiences both with soccer and then even on a larger level with high school, college, and coaching tennis now as an adult. Excited to get into it with you guys.
I love it. And Warren, I'm stoked that you said stoked, because I just texted somebody stoked the other day, and I was like, do people still say it? And yes is the answer. See, there it is. So as a
Well, I
SoCal
mean, I'm
boy,
50 years old,
yeah,
so I don't know what that
exactly.
means. Yeah,
I'm 51 and we're keeping it going. We got to keep it going,
there
Warren.
we
We got
go.
to keep it going. Paul's like in his 40s, so he's like going, "What are you old men
One
talking about? I don't
one
even
more
know what you're
year.
Yeah.
talking about."
One
Yeah.
more year of 40.
And I can't call you young
Yeah.
anymore, man. You got one more year of being a young buck.
That's right.
So
That's
And I'm
hilarious.
stoked about
you
that.
are stoked about
Yeah.
There
that.
you
You
go.
are
Stoked about
stoked
one more
about that.
year.
That's
Yep.
good. That's good. I love it. I love it. Warren, we always love to just start with your story. I mean, as you kind of you gave a little snapshot of it there with as
Mhm.
far as the sports side, but how did you develop your passion for sports, for leadership, for men and the work that you're doing and building up and developing men, and how you ended up where you are today.
No, absolutely. And I will kind of give it a bit of a sports, funnel as I share my story. But grew up in the Seattle, Washington area, so there is that West Coast component for me. And my dad was a big time sports fan. My mom was a big time athlete, and so I grew up learning to love football and basketball, baseball, all those kind of things from my dad. My mom was actually from Australia, but she was a competitive swimmer, diver, and tennis player. And so, grew up in a home where I was playing sports constantly. There was a season of about 5, 6 years where every year I was doing soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring, tennis year round, and downhill skiing during the winter months as well. And so sports have definitely been a huge factor in making me into the person that I am today. And I mentioned my brief soccer career as I got older. It was almost like a rocket, like letting go of different boosters. I realized what I was good at, and soccer got let go in about fifth grade, basketball in sixth grade, and by the time I got to high school, I was solely doing high school tennis and ended up playing collegiate tennis in a Division II school outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. So, grew up in Seattle, moved to Florida when I was 16, and it's interesting that in the state of Washington, in junior tennis, I got up to be ranked in the top 10 for my age group in junior tennis in the state of Washington. Moved to Florida, which is the tennis mecca of the world. I mean, that's where players from all over the country, all over the world come to train. And the highest that I ever got in the state of Florida was 105.
Wow.
So just to kind of give you a perspective of what that level of competition was like. But uh, middle of my sophomore year, I moved to Florida on a personal level, on a faith level. That was kind of the time in my life where God really got a hold of my life and kind of changed the whole trajectory of who I was, my identity, where I was going, and what I would end up becoming. And so, I ended up, going to college where I could get a religious studies degree, play college tennis, met my wife my freshman year of college. We got engaged our sophomore year, got married after our junior year. So we've been married for 28 years now. We've got a 23-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son, and uh, did ministry for about 25 years. And then in 2020, I had the opportunity to become the first executive director of the organization I lead now, which is called Impact Players. And that is a sports term. It's meant to connect with sports. And the idea of Impact Players is that we're all about inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. And what we're really trying to say to guys is like, you need to get out of the stands, you need to get off the bench and get onto the field and start making an impact in your marriage, in your family, in your career, in your church, your community, and your world. And when guys really start living intentionally with purpose and with passion, they're going to make an impact on the people around them. And so that's really kind of what we're doing. And it started in Seattle by a former star baseball player at the University of Washington named Matt Wimmer, and now we've taken it nationally, and we've got chapters and cohorts growing all over the country. And I live now in Charleston, South Carolina, a small town called Somerville, and we've got groups, rocking and rolling all over this area. So that's a little bit about me, and I can kind of dive more into the sports side of things, but that's kind of my story.
No, I love it. I love it, and I love as a West Coast boy, you're still a UW fan. I see. I'm
Yes.
assuming since you have a podcast
Yes.
about UW, and
Hardcore. Yeah.
and the fact that you went from back then was Pac-10 country to SEC country,
Right.
and stayed a Pac-10 fan. That's
Yeah.
I
And
went
now
to
we're
I
in the
went
Big Ten, which
yeah, I
like
know.
doesn't
It's
make any
that's
sense.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole that's the whole
Different
we're not going to
podcast.
get it. We're not
Totally
going to
different
get into
podcast.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
UCLA guy and same thing. It's like what in the world? Like I don't get it. Whatever. It doesn't even matter. But yeah, exactly. That's a whole different podcast we're not going to ever do, I don't think. But it is absolute chaos now. But I went to law school at Vanderbilt, and it was, when
Mm.
I got there, they're like, "Oh yeah, do they even play football in California?" And like all that whole thing. It was
Yeah.
fun. We had a
Yeah.
good
The
time.
East
We had
Coast
a good time.
bias is so real.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, yes it is. Yes it is. But we're not going to get into that. But I just thought I'd throw that
Yeah.
out there. That's good that
Yeah.
you're loyal is what I'm saying. That's
Oh
what I
yeah.
can hear from this is you are loyal. So
No, if you
anyway,
cut me, I bleed purple. I tell
yeah.
people I bleed purple and I pee gold. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
I'm a
That could be
diehard.
valuable. That could be
Yes.
valuable to be
Yes.
able to
There you
make that.
That
go.
But
could be.
do you with that goal, do you also support your local College of Charleston I think they're the Cougars, right?
I do not have any allegiance to any of the Charleston schools. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I do. But no, I am a diehard Husky fan. I do, as you mentioned, I do host a podcast on the Fourth and Inches Network, a Husky podcast. But no, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of any of the Charleston teams yet.
Yeah, he left it out there. That's good. That's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Paul was a Presbyterian college. He was one of the blue hose.
Oh,
yes.
So
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
when I played college tennis, I was at Wingate University.
Oh, we
So
were both in the SAC.
Presbyterian was an arch enemy of ours.
Yeah,
Oh
So
talk
wow.
about power conferences. The South Atlantic Conference
Yes.
was a D2
yeah,
powerhouse back in the
So
yeah,
90s. So, and
this is
every
yeah.
reconciliation then. We're like the reconciliation
There,
podcast here.
there
We
you
can come
go.
together and
yeah,
forgive and move on from the days of
there were some
rivalries.
great battles between the I think the Bulldogs, right? The Wingate Bulldogs.
Wingate Bulldogs. In fact, and I can tell you, this is kind of a tennis story. When I got to college, I mentioned that I was going for religious studies. I ended up becoming a youth pastor while I was in college at 19 years old. So naturally, like I was like the Christian guy on our tennis team. Like none of the other guys were Christian or had any kind of faith background. So I was kind of like that guy on the team. And it was actually at Presbyterian my junior year. And like I said, they were one of our arch enemies. And I got into a match where the guy that I was playing against was just a like class A butthole. I mean, just
Yeah.
I want to use
This
a
is a
strong
kid show, kid friendly show.
I
So I'm
want to
glad
use
you
a
said
stronger term, but I won't
it.
go
Yeah.
any stronger than that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's common courtesy that when you're serving, that somebody hits you the ball so that you've got two balls to serve with. And this guy was like hitting it like to the opposite side of the court, and I would have to like walk over and pick it up in between every point. So he's just a big time jerk. It's the only time in my tennis career where I totally lost my cool on the court, and I started using some language that I regret now. But everybody on my team literally stopped their match to watch me melt down in that moment. Um, and I regretted it, of course, and apologized to the team. But um, you know, that's my memory of Presbyterian, Paul. So we're not off to
Uh,
a good start.
Well, I'm sorry that that was your experience there, but it sounds like a great learning opportunity we're
It
provide for
was.
you as a young Christian man who's now a great leader. So, but yeah, some great memories back then. I think that leads really well, Warren, into kind of just what as you grew and developed as a leader in ministry and just through how you're really inspiring men through this too. Like what dial that back to like what is your why do you do what you do, what inspires you, take us to that granular level there.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I'll just say that one of the things I love about tennis is that, um, especially when you're playing singles, is that really it's all on you. Like, you know, you can't blame anybody else. You can't look for somebody to help you. Like you are on the court and you've got to solve the problem of how do I defeat this opponent. And one of the things that I learned from that experience that I mentioned earlier is that ultimately that guy did not make me angry. I allowed myself to get angry. Like ultimately, I was responsible for the way that I behaved, and nobody else can dictate my emotions for me. And that's an important lesson that has been completely lost in our world today, is
Hmm.
that so many people look at um, the things that have happened to them and they point to those things as the reason why they are the way that they are. And, I really believe that it's important for men, especially, to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? I am called to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermometer just reads the temperature. A thermostat sets the temperature. And in that moment that I shared about Presbyterian, I let someone else set the temperature for me. But as I think about my why, Paul, it's a great question, and I'll just be totally transparent. I have a life statement that I live my life by. It is my why, and that life statement is to magnify Christ and multiply His kingdom. That's what I did when I was working as a youth pastor for 17 years. That's what I did when I moved to Seattle in 2012 and planted a church in the least church city in America. And that's what I do now, is that I just try to live in a way that I make Jesus Christ bigger through the way that I'm living, that I'm not trying to make my name or my platform or name recognition greater, but I'm trying to make the name of Jesus greater, and I'm trying to build the kingdom of God. And so that's the why that gets me up every day and sets me on the path to do the things that I do.
Love that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love all that. I mean, I've heard that thermometer and thermostat, analogy before. I love
Mm.
that. Always love that. And every time I hear it, it's like it's a good reminder to me as well. Especially as I'm getting ready to get back into coaching. But in
Yeah.
parenthood, we know that it's so easy to just react. And
Yes.
in coaching, it's so easy to just react. In sports, it's so easy to just react. It's like, and in marriage, it's so easy to just react to be able to be like,
Hmm.
no, let we could control that. And the verse that continually every day I'm reminding myself, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, right? And
Mm.
I think that that is so much in that same vein. So,
We call that verse the play.
yeah.
So we'll say run the play. Just
Mm,
stop, listen, don't react, respond, don't get angry, don't be furious, be curious is what we like to say.
mm,
And then, let the spirit lead you in that moment instead of letting your flesh lead you. So, yeah,
I
well
love it.
said.
I love it. All right. So you have impact players. You have some transformational goals that are part of that. Can you just kind of just share what is you mentioned a little earlier, it's about discipling men
Yeah.
in their different roles. But what is impact player like? What are you doing with that? what are the transformational goals you have with that? And then we'll get into some of the other things you're doing with it as well.
Yeah, so impact players, like I said, it is about bringing men together. We believe that every man needs a band of brothers, and most men today feel isolated. They feel like they're under attack, sometimes by just an unseen enemy of the world, of the spiritual forces, but oftentimes it's like, I can't make my wife happy. I can't make my kids happy. I can't make my boss happy. I just feel like I'm constantly under attack. And so, we want men to have that band of brothers where they can come together and we can begin to help them grow into the husbands, fathers, and leaders that they want to be, that God's called them to be, and that their wives and children and community need them to be. So, kind of those four transformational goals is we want men to really become strong men of faith. We want them to become great husbands, great fathers, and great leaders. And when those things begin to take place in a man's life, when he gets that band of brothers around him, when he gets a team around him to support him, that's when we really believe that a tremendous impact can take place, not only in his life, but in the lives of everyone that he touches. And so, personally, I believe that when you can inspire a man to step up and to be the great man that he's been created to be, it not only affects him, but it affects his marriage, it affects his family, his church, his community, his workplace. And so I really think that the way to change our country and to change our world is through the men. And so that's what drives us to, to really go after men in a very intentional way.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Warren, I
absolutely.
think even looking at the order, I'm sure it's not coincidence. I'm sure you said those things in that order for a reason, where it's faith, marriage, children, in that order. I'm assuming that's
Yeah.
intentional. I know my wife and I talk a lot about how if you want to have a great family, you want to raise children the right way, your marriage has to be
Mhm.
in place first, and for your marriage to be in place first, and your faith has to be individually where it needs to be, so you can come together. Is that intentional, the order that you share that?
Yeah, really, it is. And I mean, it's really how I try to live my life. So, the number one thing in my life is my relationship with the Lord, and then my relationship with my wife. And guys, it's crazy. I know, Philip, I think you said you're 51. Paul, I believe you said you're 49. I just turned 50. My kids are quote adults now. And I'm just telling you guys, and for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you're going to blink and your kids will be grown up. And if you have made the children the center of your family, when they're gone, uh, you're going to be looking at your marriage going, I don't even know this person. We were like, you know, trying to manage a schedule instead of cultivate a relationship. And so that's why it's so important for men to really say, no, after my faith, the number one thing is my marriage. I'm going to really cultivate that because that's going to be there even after my kids are out of the house. And then I'm going to focus on my children because I'm only going to have them for a window of time. I know it might seem like it's forever when you're, getting up in the middle of the night to feed your kids or you're driving to get them to soccer practice every Thursday afternoon. But that time will go by quickly. And then the leadership, and whether that's, in your career or the organizations that you're a part of, the churches that you're a part of, but putting it in that order, the way that a man orders his life is ultimately going to determine who he becomes and what his life looks like down the road. And so we've got to get that order correct. So you're absolutely right, Phil or Paul. That's there intentionally.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I teach a class on orphan and vulnerable children. That's the organization that I
Mm,
lead, and one of the things we talk about in our class is if we could disciple males to be godly men, we would take care of most of the orphan crisis in the world.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And it's not that,
Yeah.
oh, women aren't doing it. No, women are most time doing their part. Uh, it's just the men are not, and it's causing carnage in our societies. And
Right.
and
And
it's
and
just the
and to your
reality of it.
point, like we need more strong men who have a heart for God. And when you raise up more men like that, you raise up more men who are going to adopt the children that
Yes,
don't have biological fathers. You're going to raise up more men who stand up against those that are involved in sex trafficking or child pornography or abuse of children in any way. So when men are fulfilling the role that they've been entrusted with, it not only impacts their own family and their own children, but they start becoming protectors of the vulnerable and
right.
defenders of the weak. And I know that's near and dear to your heart, and it's near and dear to the heart of God.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you alluded to it. Like they stay with their families, so there's less orphans,
Yeah.
and they don't just go out and impregnate women and leave. Like I mean, that's
Mhm.
that happening all over the world every day, and it's just but so that's why I love what you're doing, and just that's what I'm trying to help people understand is so much of orphan care is discipling of men and
Yeah.
and discipling of women in their womanhood as well. But the men, if they can, then they will lead well, and they will be leaders that
Yeah.
people want to follow, rather than these deadbeats that
Mm.
nobody would ever want to follow. And
Yeah.
so as you do that, you have these 10 characteristics of an impact player. We're not going to have time
Mhm.
to get into all
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
You have it on your website. I encourage people to go. And just while we're doing that, what's the website people can go to?
Impactplayers.org.
There you go. Impactplayers.org. We'll have those that in the show notes as well. But can you just go over a couple of the characteristics of an impact player so people kind of get a taste of it so that they can go afterwards
Yeah.
and check it out?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we could go, but when I talk about what does it look like to be an impact player, we talk about ferocious faithfulness, we talk about intentional leadership, we talk about linking shields with other men, we talk about sacrificial love, we talk about multiplying ourselves. But I think the one that often catches guys' attention when I review this with a group of men is a term that we've coined called audacious authenticity. And really, what that is about is bringing men into a circle, into a band of brothers where they can take off their masks and they can tear down their imposter syndromes and they can begin to really get real about what's going on in their lives. And I think the sense of loneliness and isolation that men feel is about more than just working from home on their computer. It's about feeling like nobody really knows who they are or what's really going on in their lives. So, you can go to a football game on a Saturday afternoon and be surrounded by 80,000 fans and walk out of that place feeling just as lonely and isolated as you were before. And the same thing, sadly true, is you could go to a church on a Sunday morning and you could be singing great songs about God. You could be listening to a great sermon about God and walk out of that church on Sunday morning and still feel like nobody really knows who I am or what I'm going through right now. And so we talk about that idea of audacious authenticity. And here's what I found, Phil, is that people say all the time, "Oh, men don't want to share their feelings," and I'm here to tell you that is not true at all. Men are dying to share their feelings. All they need is the right environment to do it. And when we set up a group, what we call it a cohort, and we say, "Hey, this is a place to practice audacious authenticity," guys dive in head first and they're all about it because they're looking for that type of community with other men.
Yeah, I love that. And I had a feeling you were going to pick that one. I didn't, of all the 10, I was like, I bet this is the one that we end up talking about. I love that. And
Yeah.
any men's group I'm a part of, I'm like, guys, if we're not getting deep with each other, if we're not being vulnerable and transparent, then we're wasting our time. What's the point? Let's
Right.
just go and watch football games. Like this doesn't.
Exactly.
What's the point of this if we're not going to be just real and raw with each other? Because the reality is we're all jacked up. And so
Exactly.
let's just start with that premise and let's get real and let's get to it and then let's start keeping each other accountable to things. And so I love that, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you
Yeah,
think?
Warren, I mean, I love that. I wish we could dive into all 10 of those, and maybe Phil, there's more to this later, uh, um, as you, I know, I want to know kind of the backstory of like, how did you kind of lead into getting involved with impact players, and maybe how did your athletic career lead you into that? Did all that kind of combine together? Like, how did that just kind of come about, and how did your athletic career maybe form that path for you? Or maybe it's not
Well, I will
athletic,
say
maybe it's
that
just love of sport, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that like who I am is definitely shaped by my athletic career. And like I said, one of the things I do love about tennis is that, it forced me to kind of learn how to deal with adversity, how to deal with emotions, anxiety, all those things. Like tennis really gives you the ability to do that. And I'll tell you, like even as a husband, it's like when I'm out on a tennis court and it's 30-40, and if I miss this serve, if I double fault, I'm gonna lose a set, I could lose the match. The ability to just take a deep breath, still your thoughts, still your mind, and then deliver on a serve when it's really needed. That's a skill that takes time to develop and time to learn. And you can take that same skill and bring it into a moment where, you and your wife are having an argument and you want to just lash out or you want to just leave and get out of the situation. But the ability to just take a deep breath and then, do what you need to do without any kind of emotional, um, you know, overwhelmed type of experience, that's part of the process. So, going back to your question though, like, um, I'm a very competitive person. So I think that in many ways, like the way that I've done ministry and career has very much been like, I'm going to push, I'm going to drive. I feel like my personality type is a scrapper. I'm just going to keep scrapping until things break through. And I got involved with impact players when I was in Seattle trying to start a church, and I was struggling. It was not going the way that I'd hoped it would go. And honestly, like I needed to be around a group of guys who would remind me of what was really important because I was allowing my desire to see this career, this ministry to succeed, overtake the priorities that I just mentioned of being a man of God, of being a husband, being a father. And it was really influencing me in a very negative way. And so I started coming to impact players just to be around guys who would remind me of what it meant to be a man. Um, so when I took over, I think I took a lot of, that mentality that I had as an athlete to say, like, I'm going to push, I'm going to scrap, I'm going to find strategies that will help us to win men. And, we're gonna go after this. And obviously, impact players is a sports terminology, and so we do, utilize a lot of sports analogies in our development of men, and we really try to, kind of pull on that side of the way that a lot of men are wired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nah, go ahead, Paul.
no, I was just going to say that the guys at Presbyterian said you're really competitive, so I just wanted to throw that out. Just kidding. Uh, but I do love that. We Warrior Way. I know this isn't something we invented, but we call it recover, recall, relax, and something we try to teach kids because
Mm.
our ministry is Virgin Faith in Sport with kids. And one of the things is like, how do we get them to put God's word in their heart and in their mind. So when they come into one of those moments, can they tap into God's word and say, okay, how do I get through this in the moment? So I probably the same thing, like, hey, stop, let's take a breath, can we reflect? Does God have something to say about this moment? And how do I bring him
Yeah.
into this moment so that I can be what he wants me to be, but also be more than I can be on my own? And I love that there's so much connection there. Very, very similar. So I love that, because we are in control. Like you said earlier, we are in control of not in what happens to us, but how we respond to that. And I think that if we
Yeah.
have God's word plugged in, then it's very helpful. And I know there's plenty of times where I'm in moments where I'm like, okay, I've got nothing right now. It's like
Yeah.
I got to battle through
Yeah.
that, but I can so connect with that and love that. I love that relationship that you have with those moments. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, so let's get back into just your career in sports. So, like, what was a
Mhm.
defining moment that you had in your athletic career as a player, and why was it so impactful? What'd you learn from it? And how are you using that today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't a professional tennis player, so my moments are not going to seem that grand to somebody who reads Sports Illustrated or watches ESPN every week. But um, in my high school tennis career, I went 55-1 over the course of the 4 years that I played high school tennis. And that one loss was my senior year against a player by the name of Peter Nabresny. And we were very evenly matched. And he got the best of me that day, and it was obviously devastating. I had made it through the first 3.5 years of my high school career without a single singles loss, and I was really hoping that I would be able to, continue that all the way through high school. Um, and so I had to kind of recover from that. But then the redemption story of that is that when we got to districts, our team was facing off against that same high school. And at that time, the way that high school tennis worked was that you had a total of 7 matches. And, it was the best of 7. And so all the matches kind of started around the same time. But I was playing Peter, and we split sets. So by the time we started into the third set, um, all the other matches were finished, and both teams were 3-3. So the winner of that match was going to determine who got to go to state. And our high school had never gone to state in tennis, and we had a really good team, and we wanted to get to state really badly. So going into that third set, um, everybody was watching that last match. This is the only guy I've lost to in my high school career. And so there were a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, anxieties, and all that kind of stuff. Long story short, I managed to win the third set. And obviously, it was a tremendous feeling, that redemption of, kind of beating the guy who had beaten me earlier in the season felt really, really good. And I only had a couple moments in my tennis career where there was anybody to report the news of how I performed. But there was a reporter there that day that interviewed me after the match was over, and I think it was a good experience for me because as much as I wanted to, take all the glory for that win, um, God had done a profound work in my life, and I really wanted to make that moment all about Him. And so, I was able to kind of say, like you see athletes do all the time, hey, I just want to give glory to God. Ultimately, you know, this is all for Him. And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to, use my gifts in tennis to win this for my team. And then to go and celebrate with the team afterwards a tremendous, tremendous blessing. So I'd say that, if I had a pinnacle of my tennis career, I did go on to play college tennis. I definitely lost more than one match in college. I had about a 600 record, so I won about 60% of my matches in college. But that was kind of my final send off in high school tennis in the state of Florida.
Surprised they haven't made a movie about that, Warren. But maybe one day. Maybe one day.
That's
Maybe after this
hilarious.
podcast releases,
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
that's all
that's
we
true.
needed for that.
Kurt,
That's
Kurt
So
Warner is calling to ask how we can get the rights to this
pretty
story.
much.
Yeah,
Pretty
he wants
much.
to
I think
play
that's
you.
gonna
That'd
happen
be
now.
interesting if
I
Kurt
think
Warner played the tennis player.
I think
that would
Kurt
be
listens to
hilarious.
this, Paul, so that's probably likely. It's
That's right.
probably
Hey Kurt,
likely.
thanks for
Yeah.
listening, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks. Shout out Kurt
That's so
Warner.
funny.
Yeah, and then we can do a
That's
flash forward
hilarious.
to your match against Presbyterian in the video too,
There you
just to
go.
We
see how
could.
that all
There you
comes full
go.
circle. So,
So
By the
Paul,
way,
uh,
I lost that match.
do
oh,
the
you did, you
Presbyterian
did.
guys
I lost
wear
that match. Yeah.
do they wear blue hose when they're playing tennis?
Yes, of course we do.
Okay.
I
Okay,
mean,
I'm
I
just
don't know if
making
the
sure.
tennis guys actually did or not, but the
Yeah.
soccer team did. I
Soccer.
mean,
Yeah, you did.
it
Okay.
started
Just
it
making sure.
started with the baseball team. They were the Blue Sox, and it became the
Okay.
Blue Hose. It's the battle socks that the Scottish
Yes.
wore to
I know.
battle.
We had that
Okay,
conversation.
sorry,
Yeah.
Presbyterian. Just go Hose. Um,
That's
You're
hilarious.
wow, we
definitely
really
defensive
just
about that every time we say it, Paul, but that's okay. I like it. I like it. It's like the Scottish probably are with their blue hose when they're
it's
going to
like you
battle,
don't
so it's
like blue
good.
socks. It's like you have something against blue socks.
Hey, we
That's
wear blue
all.
socks for Folsom High. We just don't call them hose. That's it. That's
Well,
the
you're
only
missing out. You
difference.
could, you could,
We
but you're gonna have to
should.
buy the
We probably
rights.
should. We
You're gonna have to
probably
pay to
should.
use those
That's
words.
hilarious.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we had to pay Gonzaga for the Bulldog for it, but that's why we had to change our Bulldog. So Folsom
Unbelievable.
High.
Well, we have
Yeah.
totally derailed this entire conversation here, Warren. This was going really well
No,
until I
I love
mentioned the
it.
blue
I
hose
love it.
again.
That's
So,
great. That's
but
great.
with that, and what I love is we ask that question to a lot of people, and I mean, you prefaced it by
Mhm.
like, "This is not an ESPN," blah blah blah. Like, none of them are. It's your
Yeah.
defining moment. It's what did for most of the folks that are on here, it's like where did you feel like God was moving in some certain areas of your life? And like it's some people talk about injury, some talk about whatever. So I love the individuals comments on what that really is in
Yeah.
their life. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I think it's really 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 awesome to have that moment of redemption. Most people don't get that,
Yeah.
um,
Is
and
it
to be
okay to
able to
share another story?
yeah, do it.
Okay. Yeah. So this is another kind of fun one. So, I grew up playing junior tennis, and I had another arch rival, a guy named Scott Weinkoff. He was about a year older than me. He was like at least a foot taller than me. I mean, I was just, as a 13, 14-year-old, I was probably like 5'3". Um, and he was like 6'2". He was huge. And we would have these epic battles. And we played this one match where we both were kind of in this mindset that we were not going to miss a single shot. And we started having these super long rallies. And one rally began, and the ball went over the net back and forth 407 times. And I know the exact number because my parents were watching the match and they had already begun counting how long these rallies would go. Now, if you watch tennis today, some rallies only last one shot. It's just the serve.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Most rallies never last more than 5, 6 shots. So to have a rally that
That's
lasted
insane.
that's crazy.
407 shots, I mean, it was the better part of 10, 15 minutes long for that one single point. And after I won that point, he collapsed. Like mentally, it was game over. It was like, okay, we had just battled, head to head, and I was able to come out on top in that. And and the reason why I share that story is because you talk about formational moments. I would have never guessed as a 12 or 13-year-old that a single point um, of tennis would really shape who I was. But in many ways, that has defined the way that I kind of approach my life is like, I'm just going to I'm just gonna keep going after it. Just get the ball back one more time. Just make one more phone call. Just make one more attempt to reach that person or to grow this ministry or whatever it is, and just don't give up. And I think that's the great thing about sports. That's why I love this podcast. Is that um, there are a few things in this world that can create a lesson like that in your life, like sports can. And so I'm a huge fan of people participating in sports. But what I love about what you guys are doing is that you're helping people to connect the dots between what is happening on the field and how can that transform the way that I live my life off the field. And I think that's a really powerful, um, you know, learning lab that we can begin to take some of these lessons and then put them into our lives on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's definitely something that I value about what we get. I think I can speak for Phil, what we get out of this too, with the conversations that we have with folks like yourself. And, we've talked a lot about kind of the things that you've been through and things. And a big part of this conversation we have also is about coaches, right? And how can they
Yeah.
impact? Are there a couple coaches through your career that impacted you in a way that, well, positive or negatively, that has helped influence how you coach and how you lead?
Yeah, I had a coach when I was growing up in juniors named Roger Mark, and one of the things is that he brought a lot of fun and camaraderie, and that's an important thing, especially in sports today, is that a lot of times we get into this specialization, high pressure type of approach to sports that I don't think is healthy. And I hope I don't ruffle any feathers by saying that, but like,
Not at all.
I think, I just think, you know, if sports is so serious when you're 13, 14, 15, 16 years old that like by the time you get to college, you hate the sport that you're playing. That's that's not good. So Roger was intense. He made us work hard, but he also brought a lot of fun. There was a lot of laughter. He gave us all nicknames and made us feel like we were special and seen and all those things. So I think about Roger as like an example of a coach that I want to be like, and I do coach tennis today. Um, but then I also had a lot of coaches that really like they were just there for a paycheck. They were just there to, kind of make a couple extra $1,000 to get them through, the season in addition to teaching. And, you know, uh, I think that when you're around somebody like that, you you don't want to give everything you have for somebody that doesn't seem truly invested. And so again, it's kind of like, sometimes men learn how to be a great dad because they had a great dad. Other times men learn to be a great dad because they're like, I'm going to do the opposite of what my dad did. So
Mhm.
even as a coach, I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, okay, I want to take the lessons that I learned from Roger, but I also want to learn from the coaches that weren't doing it the right way so that I can be for someone else what I didn't have from those coaches in college.
Yeah, no, and that's true. That's true. And then it's also sometimes people, and this goes to what you guys do with impact players, is sometimes people want to be the dad that somebody was to them that wasn't their biological father, but a role model, a
Amen.
father figure in their life, and a coach. Oftentimes, those are coaches. And I try to help coaches
Amen.
understand that is sometimes you're going to be the only picture of a father these kids have. You're going to be the only picture of a husband these kids have. So,
Well
they're
said.
watching
Well said.
and they are watching.
Yeah.
So, um, on that note, I want you to go back in time if you could.
Mm.
And if you can go back, I'm going to say you're 20. You said you married been married 26 years. So I'm going to go
28 years.
28
Yep.
years. So let's go to your
Yep.
21-year-old self
Mm.
and what advice would you like to go back and give your 21-year-old self about life and leadership if you could go back in time? Is there a couple things you'd love to tell
Mm.
yourself that back then that might give you a leg up.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I'm super grateful for, some of you guys may be familiar, some of your listeners may be familiar, but in the late 90s there was a tremendous movement among men that actually came from Coach Bill McCartney, who was
Hmm.
a national championship winning football coach, called Promise Keepers.
Hmm.
And I got married in August of 1997. And just a couple months later, I got on a bus with about 60 men, drove all night, and I was at the Million Man Gathering of Promise Keepers in Washington, D.C. And so in many ways, I got the blessing of getting to hear from that future Warren, from the guys that were there at that Promise Keepers rally. And then I joined a group of men who were guys in their 30s and 40s that I met with for several months, learning how to be a better husband, better father, better leader. So, so I would just to start off by saying, like, if there are some younger guys on this listening to this podcast, that's the number one thing that I would recommend is get into a group, a band of brothers with guys who are not your peers, with guys who are mentors, who have gone where you want to go and have experienced the highs and the lows. Be in a group with guys who have a great marriage, but also be in a group with guys who are divorced or are on their second marriage and learn from those guys. Really, glean wisdom from them and learn to begin to understand, like, where do you find your identity? Because when you're just starting out in your 20s, and this is true, I'd say for most young people, is that they have 100x energy and they've got one wisdom. So if you can take that 100x energy that you've got and find somebody who's also got a lot of wisdom to guide you in the steps that you're taking, your 20s can be incredible. Like, you could have just an absolutely amazing decade in your 20s, getting your career started, getting your family and your marriage started, your ministry, whatever that might be. Um, you've got the energy, but what you don't have is the wisdom. And so get that wisdom in your life so that you can make the most of that instead of getting to be 35, 40 years old and going, boy, I really wasted my 20s and early 30s screwing around, being an idiot, being a fool. Like, that's the biggest advice that I would give my younger self or younger men listening to this, and women too. It's for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Warren, like Phil likes to say, all good things must come to an end. So we got to start winding
Yeah.
down a little bit here. But
Yeah.
this has been an amazing conversation. I really value what you're doing, being, a man who could use that myself and raising four young men as well as being a coach forever, just seeing, the need for what you're doing. Just really appreciate that and hope to have continued conversations about this because such an important thing in our world overall, but especially through ministry, through faith, people of faith. I think it's so important what you're doing. But
Mhm.
a couple last final questions we ask everybody. What are some what or I'll say it this way: how have you used lessons you've learned directly from sport, maybe specifically tennis, in your marriage and parenting? What has gone directly from sport into parent and marriaging?
Well, I'll just say one thing when it comes to tennis is that there's two ways that you play tennis. There's singles and there's doubles, right? And so when you're married, your wife is not your opponent. She's your partner, right? So the way that I treat my opponent is I'm trying to beat that person. I'm trying to find a way to be better than them and to make them worse than me. But when I have a doubles partner, I'm trying to lift up that partner. I'm trying to encourage them when they make a mistake. remind them that they've got this, that they can do this. I've seen them do it before, that they can be successful. We strategize together on how to win, how to have a successful team. And so I think that's a great model for men in and women in marriage is don't see your wife or your husband as an opponent, see them as a partner, and your enemy is it's an unseen enemy. It's a spiritual enemy that's trying to tear down your marriage and to try to break apart that partnership. So that would be one lesson that I would encourage men to really focus on. And I'll just say on a very practical level, um, you can win the argument and lose the relationship. So if you and your wife are regularly arguing, getting into fights, whatever, change your mindset. Stop thinking about trying to win the argument and start thinking about how do I win my wife's heart? Because if you can win her heart, um, that's going to create the type of marriage where the arguments become less and less and less. So that's one lesson from tennis that I specifically tried to apply into my life.
That's good. I was
Yeah.
writing some things down there, as you maybe could notice if you're watching the video. So I appreciate probably some words I need right now. So thank you, Warren, for that.
I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that. We talk about that all the time, and I have to continue preaching to myself that sometimes you can be so right that you're wrong, and
Yeah.
and that goes to exactly what you were just talking about there, and yeah. So man, there's so much more we could talk about, and I want to talk about, but this is not the Joe Rogan podcast. We can't go for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I hear you.
But
Also a
I
listener, I'm
wish.
sure. Also a listener, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I know he is. We talked the other
Yes.
day, so
Yeah.
he
Hey,
listens all the
Joe.
time, all the time.
Yeah.
So, but what the last question we love to hear is just what have you read, watched, or listened to that has most impacted your thinking on how tennis or other sports explain life and leadership?
That's great. I just read not too long ago. Brad Gilbert wrote a book
Hmm.
called Winning Ugly.
Hmm.
So Brad Gilbert played in the era of Michael Chang, Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, Boris Becker. Made it up to, I believe he made it up to like three or four in the world. And he was just a moderately talented tennis player. He didn't have the power, the speed, the reaction of those top guys, but he learned to win. And I think that's just a tremendous inspiration for guys wherever they're at. Like we can all look at the tools that we've been given. I'm 5'7.5". I'm not that fast. I'm not that strong. I'm not the most talented guy in the world. And so it's like, okay, how do I take what I have and make the most of it and do the very best with what I have been given? And there's a story in the Bible that Jesus tells about a man that was given 5 talents, and that was actually a sum of money, and then another man that was given two, and then another man that was given one. And the man with 5 talents doubled his money. The man with two doubled his money. And then the man that with one, he didn't do anything with it. He buried it in the ground, and ultimately he was accountable for what he didn't do. And the parable ends with the master coming back and saying to the first two servants, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a little, so I will entrust you with a lot." And I think that's all that we can do as players and as leaders is we can say, can I be faithful to do the very best with what has been entrusted to me? I mean, I could spend all day long telling you guys all the ways that I wish that I was better, more talented, better looking, taller, all these things. but I can't change any of that. All I can do is try to be the very best Warren that I can be and leave it all out on the field, leave it all out in life, and then the rest is up to God. But God's not going to be judging me on, how big I get or how much success I have. He's going to be judging on me on what did I do with what I've been entrusted with. And so I think that's a lesson that I hope every person will take with them is, maybe you're going to be a Division I college soccer player, or maybe you're going to be riding the bench for your JV team, but give the very best that you have and just know that that's good enough. So that would be my kind of final word of encouragement.
I
Love it.
love that.
It's awesome.
I love that. Have you watched the Breakpoint series on I think it's
Yeah.
Netflix. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a great insight into the minds of tennis
Yeah.
players, and some tennis players are very emotionally and mentally strong, and others are a total train wreck.
That's exactly what I
Um,
said. Yeah. Trainwreck is
and
exactly what
it
I
just
used.
goes to show you, like, and that's why I like that book by Brad Gilbert is so
Mm-hmm.
interesting, is that he wasn't the most talented guy, but he had a strong mind
Yeah.
that allowed him to beat Boris Becker, Andre
Mm-hmm.
Agassi, Pete Sampras, John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors. He beat all those guys, even though they were all more talented than him, because he was able to control his emotions, think about strategy, and do the right thing at the right time to achieve the result that he was going for.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Full swing on golf, break point on tennis. They're so good for
Yeah,
the just the mental side of the game. Cause yeah, like you said,
yeah,
that's exactly what I thought. Like they're trying like Sabalenka, I mean, she's kind of controlled a little bit, but you
yeah.
still see her go off the rails in these matches, and she's dude, there's nobody should have any business beating her at this point,
That's
like
right.
and
That's right.
athletically, but she's,
Hmm.
she can't keep it together and then that's so important in life too, right?
Hmm.
So anyway,
It is. Yeah.
um we don't have time to go into the discussion of that, which I'd love to do, but Paul, you have a final word?
No, Warren, I just appreciate your time and what your ministry is doing for just a really important segment of our culture right now that we've just got to dive in. So appreciate what you're doing and just prayerful that God will continue to bless your work and what you're doing with you and your ministry and your family and all of that. Just appreciate your time and excited really probably just to dive a little bit more into that as well myself personally. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Would love to get you involved. And impact players, you can start it anywhere you are. Like our dream is to see men's groups all over the country. And we've got all the tools and the resources to help any man, pull together a band of brothers and get it started in his community. But I just want to say thank you guys for letting me be a part of this, because honestly, like this podcast kind of scratches an itch for me, and that's I love talking about sports. I love talking about tennis. I get to nerd out a little bit with you guys about this stuff. And so thank you for letting me get a chance to do that. It's been a great highlight of my day and my week.
Well, thank you. And I think we're going to hire Warren as our marketing team.
Yep,
Paul, what do you think? You think
I'm on board.
yeah, okay.
All in
Um,
favor, say aye, aye.
so there we go.
Let's go.
But thank you, Warren. It's very much appreciate it. Like Paul, appreciate what you're doing. Grateful for all that. Grateful that you did take the time to be with us. Thank you, folks out there, for being a part of this as well. We hope that you do engage this stuff. We hope that you are using this stuff, and that it is helping you. And if it's helping you, we ask you to share it with others. Help others as well with the stuff that's helping you. And so.
Mm.
That's the best way to get this out is for you to share it with other people, to rate and review the show, subscribe to the show if you haven't already, so that it comes directly to your feed. And if you want to learn more about what Paul is doing with Warrior Way, you can. It'll be in the show notes, warriorwaysoccer.com. If you want to learn about the Nations United stuff that we're doing with the North American sport movement in connection with World Cup 26 coming to our nation, as well as Mexico and Canada, you can check that out, nationsunited.net. And as always, folks, we hope that you're taking what you're learning from this, you're using it to be a better spouse, a better parent, a better coach, a better leader, just better in everything that you do. And you continue to remind yourself that soccer and tennis and other sports do explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great couple weeks.